Today, we're plunging into, well, a pretty fascinating and sometimes turbulent snapshot of the world in 2025. We're drawing from a whole stack of compelling sources you shared with us.
That's right.
And our mission really is to distill the most important insights so you can get a thorough understanding of the major currents shaping our world without feeling overwhelmed.
Think of it as your shortcut.
Exactly. Your shortcut to being truly well-informed about, the complex interplay of geopolitics, social change, and economic evolution.
Indeed. And we have quite a landscape to explore today, from high-stakes international conflicts to the very fabric of national governance.
Right.
And also the quiet but really impactful work of economic development. What truly stands out, I think, is the sheer breadth of forces at play.
And we'll also zero in on the influence of information, won't we? How it's used, misused.
Oh, definitely. How it's leveraged across all these different spheres. It's a huge theme.
Okay, let's unpack this then, starting with a deep dive into the 2025 India-Pakistan conflict.
Right.
Our sources paint a picture of intense modern warfare, but there's a truly unexpected twist, especially when we look at that information battleground.
Yeah, it gets quite murky. So kicking off on May 7th, India launched Operation Sindoor.
Missile strikes.
Yes, missile strikes against what they alleged was terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan-administered Kashmir. Now, India stated very clearly no military or civilian targets were hit.
But Pakistan's version?
Immediately countered. They reported civilian casualties, including hits on mosques. And that same day, Pakistan's army retaliated.
Mortar shells.
Mortar shell attacks on Jammu, particularly Poonch. These also caused civilian deaths, damaged homes, religious sites.
And here's a critical detail the sources highlight.
The drone battle.
The first drone battle between these two nuclear-armed nations.
Right.
That's significant.
Hugely significant, and heavy fighting also erupted concurrently at the line of control near Sialkot and Rajouri. Defense analyst Michael Kugelman, he stated pretty unequivocally that the countries were effectively at war.
Even without mobilizing ground forces.
Exactly. Which shows how modern conflict is changing.
And this is where the narrative really starts to fragment, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Especially around the air skirmishes.
Oh, absolutely. Wildly conflicting reports on downed jets.
So India initially claimed it prevented Pakistani jets from even entering its airspace.
Right. And they said they intercepted a few fighters, mentioning wreckage found outside Indian borders, but crucially, no exact numbers revealed. Pakistan, conversely, claimed only minor damage to one of its aircraft. Very different stories.
Then on May 12th, India displayed wreckage.
Yes, what it claimed was wreckage from a Pakistani Mirage III or maybe a Mirage 5, trying to provide some proof.
But the information flow just got, well, really opaque.
Completely. India's Air Force initially was quite vague, wasn't it? Just stating that losses are a part of combat.
Which, according to France 24, actually gave more credence to Pakistan's claims, ironically.
It did. And another analyst, Michael Clark, even suggested, that losing a high-value Rafale jet might be deliberately kept as an unconfirmed rumor to avoid embarrassment.
But eventually there was an admission.
Yes, by May 31st. India's Chief of Defense Staff, General Anil Chauhan, did admit to jet losses. He dismissed Pakistan's claim of 6 losses, though.
But acknowledged losses happened.
Yes, and significantly, he acknowledged these losses actually prompted a reevaluation and correction in India's warfighting tactics for later strikes. So an impact on strategy.
Okay, now this is where, for me, it gets really interesting. The whole information battleground aspect.
This is quite something.
Our sources show widespread instances of official channels, sharing fabricated content.
It's pretty brazen, like the official X handle that's formerly Twitter of the government of Pakistan.
Sharing what?
Footage from the video game Arma 3, and their information minister, Atala Tarar, praising a nerve-wracking response as if it were real combat footage.
Unbelievable. And there was more, right? The newspaper front page.
Oh, yeah. A Daily Telegraph front page supposedly showing a Pakistani aerial victory, shared by Deputy Prime Minister Ishaq Dar, no less.
And it turned out to be
completely AI-generated, confirmed by fact-checkers.
Wow. So state-sponsored fake news, essentially.
And it didn't stop there. A supposed CNN infographic seemingly verifying Pakistan's claims of territorial gains, also fabricated.
And false reports about captured pilots.
Right. False reports about India capturing a female pilot, Shivangi Singh, circulated widely on Pakistani social media. Just pure disinformation.
Deutsche Welle did some fact-checking on this too, didn't
they? They did. They found a video with millions of views allegedly showing Indian missile strikes. It was actually footage of Iranian missiles hitting Israel from October 2024, months earlier, different conflict entirely.
And the Rafale jet claim.
Another piece of misdirection. The video supposedly showing a downed Rafale actually showed a Pakistani Mirage 5 that had crashed weeks before in a training mission. Or sometimes a Sukhoi Su-30 from a crash back in June 2024. Completely misrepresented.
That is just a staggering level of deliberate deception, especially coming from official sources. What does that tell us about, well, the current state of information warfare?
Well, it really underscores how this conflict, maybe more than others before it, highlights the evolving nature of modern warfare. Kinetic actions, the actual fighting, are now just completely intertwined with this intense information battle.
You can't separate them anymore.
Exactly. And it raises a really important question for all of us, I think. In a world just awash with information, how do citizens, how do even international observers figure out what's true and what's fiction in real time during a crisis?
Especially when official sources are the ones muddying the waters.
Precisely, when they contribute directly to the fog of war. Now, internationally, there was concern. The UN Secretary General urged restraint.
And President Trump announced a ceasefire.
He did on May 10th. Though, interestingly, India later rejected his claim of actually ending the conflict and refused any third-party mediation. Pakistan did open its airspace that same day.
But the ceasefire didn't exactly hold, did it?
Not perfectly. Despite the agreement, violations were reported by both sides just hours later. Drones spotted, anti-aircraft fire continuing. It just showed how fragile any kind of peace was at that moment.
Okay, so while those external tensions were dominating the headlines, our sources also shed light on some really intricate challenges within nations.
Yeah, moving beyond the direct conflict.
Right, moving from those information battlegrounds of India-Pakistan, let's turn our focus inward now. First, let's look at India's domestic human rights landscape in 2024, and then shift to a recent, pretty explosive crisis in neighboring Nepal.
Okay, so the Human Rights Watch report for India in 2024, it paints a complex picture, especially under Prime Minister Modi's third term.
What were the main points?
Well, it notes continued discrimination against minority communities, specifically citing attacks by Hindu vigilantes against Muslims, often over things like beef consumption or cattle transport.
And Christians, too.
And assaults on Christians over alleged illegal conversions, particularly in BJP-run states. Systemic violence against Dalits also continued, with some really disturbing specific examples cited, like a 15-year-old Dalit boy being forced to drink urine.
Horrific. And what about dissent?
The report highlights the suppression of dissent quite strongly. Government critics, journalists, particularly in Kashmir, climate activists like Sonam Wangchuk, human rights defenders.
Facing consequences.
Yes, facing politically motivated prosecutions, arbitrary detentions, restrictions on movement, often under quite draconian laws like the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, the UAPA.
It's a tough one.
It is. It grants authorities really broad powers to detain people without charge for extended periods, effectively stifling dissent. Civil society groups were also targeted.
How so?
Using foreign funding laws, the FCRA, and counterterrorism laws to revoke licenses for research institutions, charities. The Financial Action Task Force, the FATF, even specifically recommended India prevent the abuse of its counterterrorism policies against NGOs.
And there were new laws, too.
Right. 3 new criminal laws enforced in July 2024, replacing older codes. These expanded police powers and raised serious concerns about freedoms of expression, association, and the right to a fair trial.
Censorship.
Online censorship was also noted as prevalent. Websites like Hindutva Watch and India Hate Lab were blocked. Social media accounts of journalists and even farmers reporting on protests were suspended.
But it wasn't all negative, was it? There were some wins mentioned.
That's true. There was a significant win for free speech in September 2024. The Bombay High Court struck down a government amendment.
The one about the fact-checking unit.
Exactly. The one that would have empowered the government to create a unit to order takedowns of what it deemed false or misleading online information about itself. A big check on potential government overreach there.
And on LGBTQI plus inclusion.
Also a positive step noted. In September 2024, the central government announced several measures for LGBTQI+ inclusion, like allowing partners to be treated as part of the same household, for ration cards, getting joint bank accounts. Small steps, but important ones.
So a complex picture indeed. Severe challenges, definitely, but also some glimmers of progress or resistance.
Precisely. And then if we shift our focus just next door to Nepal, we see how quickly internal tensions can just ignite.
This was very recent, September 2025.
Extremely recent. The Nepal parliament was set on fire. This followed the prime minister's resignation. But what's really critical here, the trigger.
The social media ban.
Yes. The unrest was apparently triggered by a government ban on social media platforms. When that ban was eventually lifted, the protests just swelled into a mass movement, primarily focused against corruption.
And it escalated quickly.
Very quickly and violently. Crowds torched the parliament building in Kathmandu, attacked other government buildings, political leaders' homes.
Leading to deaths.
Yes, reports indicated at least 19 deaths by the Monday, 3 more the next day. And there were even reports around 900 inmates escaping from 2 prisons amid the chaos.
A breakdown of order.
Completely. To the point where the army chief issued a very stark warning, threatening to take control of the situation if the unrest continued.
Wow. So these 2 examples, India and Nepal, they really highlight how deeply the digital realm now influences both national stability and individual rights, don't they?
Absolutely. The India-Pakistan conflict showed us external information warfare, state actors using fakes.
While Nepal demonstrates how government control over digital platforms, trying to shut them down, can actually ignite profound internal, social, and political unrest.
It really underscores the fragility of these information ecosystems and maybe governance itself in a world where communication is just instantaneous and everywhere. The HRW report from India gives that sobering look at internal policies clashing with democratic principles.
But also those glimmers of progress.
Right. And Nepal shows how access to, or denial of access to, information platforms is becoming fundamental. It's not just about free speech anymore. It's about stability.
Okay, so from conflict and political unrest, let's shift gears now. Let's focus on a different kind of challenge. Economic development, specifically in a fragile state context, and how innovation, how strategic interventions might foster resilience.
Where are we headed?
We're heading to Guinea-Bissau, one of the poorest countries in sub-Saharan Africa, for a deep dive into a World Bank-supported project there.
Right. Guinea-Bissau, that presents a truly formidable context for any development project.
Extremely challenging. Ranks among the lowest globally on the Human Development Index, poverty rates have been soaring.
And caught in that vicious cycle, right? Political instability, economic gridlock, weak institutions, marked by frequent changes in leadership, military interventions.
Including a coup as recently as 2012.
Yes. And drug trafficking is a major concern layering on top of that. Economically, it's incredibly dependent on agriculture.
Particularly cashews.
Raw cashew nuts. Over 90% of the country's exports. They're actually the 4th largest producer globally.
But there's a catch.
A huge catch. Exporting only raw nuts means the country misses out completely on the crucial value added from processing and the jobs that could create internally.
So in such a fragile environment, how do you even begin to tackle these deep-seated issues? This World Bank project, the Private Sector Rehabilitation and Agribusiness Development Project, it's about $8.2 million US. It seems to offer some compelling strategies.
Yeah, the objectives are quite clear, according to the sources. Support inclusive development of that cashew agribusiness sector, that's key. And also promote entrepreneurship in other sectors to try and diversify.
Let's break that down. The first component. Promoting agribusiness.
Right, about $5.4 million for this. It focuses heavily on the cashew value chain, as you'd expect, but also on rice production. The main goal is empowering the smallholder cashew farmers. They make up, 75–85% of the plantations.
How do they empower them?
Several ways. Boosting productivity, improving farming practices like addressing tree density, promoting intercropping cashew with staple crops like upland rice.
Which is vital for food security.
Absolutely vital, especially when about 20% of rural households are food insecure. It also helps smooth out income across the year. But one of the most ingenious interventions seems to be this price information system.
Tell me more about that.
It's managed by ANCA, the National Cashew Regulatory Body. It disseminates real-time price data, international prices, local estimations directly to farmers via text message through their association, AI.
So they know what their crop is actually worth.
Exactly. It directly counters their previous lack of market insight, their limited bargaining power. It empowers them to negotiate much better prices instead of, being forced to sell immediately at harvest when prices are often lowest.
Smart. What else in that component?
The project also funds the rental and rehabilitation of 4 communal cashew storage facilities, properly equipped with pallets, jute bags.
So farmers don't have to sell right away.
Precisely. These facilities, located near processing plants, allow farmers to store their nuts safely and sell throughout the year when prices might be higher. This reduces their vulnerability to price shocks and also helps cut down on smuggling. Apparently, 65,000 tons were smuggled out in 2013 alone.
That's a huge amount. So this helps farmers get better prices and store their crop. What about actually processing the cashews locally to add value?
That's the next piece. For cashew agro-processing, the project scales up a successful model, a hub-and-spoke model piloted elsewhere.
How does that work?
Instead of just exporting raw nuts, it helps set up 4 small community-based processing units, about 200 tons a year each. These are clustered around a central unit, reaching a size that's commercially viable, about 800 tons of raw nuts per year total.
And the benefit?
It's highly labor-intensive. It creates vital jobs, especially, the sources note, for women in these low-income rural communities. Building on that, it also supports investment promotion efforts.
To attract bigger players.
Exactly. To attract medium-scale industrial cashew processing plants, say 2,000, 3,000 tons a year, using the community-level success as a kind of demonstration project. Proof of concept.
Makes sense. And there was institution building, too.
Yes, technical assistance to FUNPI, that's the Fund to Promote Industrialization of Agricultural Products. It's a public-private institution funded by a levy on raw cashew exports. The goal is to improve its financial and operational management, its accountability.
Which is important because
FUNPI has historically faced governance controversies, questions about how its funds were used, so strengthening it is critical for long-term success.
Okay, so that's the agribusiness side. What about moving beyond agriculture? How does the project tackle broader economic diversification?
Right, that's component 2, developing entrepreneurship, about $1.8 million. This focuses on diversifying the economy, given that agriculture currently generates something like 80% of employment.
How does it foster entrepreneurship?
Mainly through addressing the severe financial and managerial constraints, especially for youth and women. There's a 3-phase business plan competition, or BPC.
Offering funding.
Yes, seed capital up to US $8,000. But crucially, it's provided as in-kind grants, not cash.
Why in-kind?
It's a clever design feature. It helps ensure the investment goes directly into the business equipment, supplies, whatever, rather than facing pressure from family or friends to share cash sums. It also provides essential managerial skills training alongside the funding.
And targeting specific groups.
Yes, it prioritizes young entrepreneurs who often lack opportunities and credit history. And it uses a gender quota system aiming for 50% women applicants, with special coaching and even childcare support provided.
That's quite holistic. What happens after they win the grant?
There's post-launch support, linking winners with potential investors for early funding rounds, with financial institutions for possible debt financing later on. It also tries to foster social capital, encouraging interaction within groups of winners, with performance incentives like a bonus if, say, 7 out of 10 businesses in a group survive.
So it's really about empowering individuals, but also strengthening the whole ecosystem around them.
Exactly. And the project also aims to improve the overall climate for new investments by tackling some of those broader institutional constraints we talked about.
Like what?
Things like preparing legislation for agricultural warehouse receipts, which can help increase working capital financing for farmers. Streamlining import and export procedures, a classic bottleneck.
Bureaucracy.
Always. Strengthening the one-stop shop for business registration, making it easier to start a business. And even introducing small pilot programs to try and reduce corruption at borders, like using incentives for customs officials.
Tackling corruption head on.
In small, targeted ways. And finally, providing technical assistance for a simplified tax registration system for small businesses, the entreprenant status, including IT software for the tax authority to improve efficiency and transparency.
This whole Guinea-Bissau deep dive.
Yeah.
It really offers a compelling case study, doesn't it?
It really does.
It shows how these strategic, kind of multifaceted interventions, even in the most challenging environments imaginable, can actually address fundamental economic fragilities.
Yeah, from empowering farmers with simple, vital price information,
to fostering entrepreneurship among youth and women, tackling systemic corruption piece by piece. It feels like a really comprehensive approach to building a more resilient, more diversified economy.
And it's particularly smart, I think, given the constant political instability, that the project design tries to focus on interventions that are somewhat independent of the political cycle.
Working directly with the private sector, with NGOs.
Exactly. But of course, this raises the big question, doesn't it? How effectively can these targeted interventions scale up and, crucially, sustain their impact over the long term, especially when facing that ongoing political instability?
That's the $1 million question, or maybe the $8.2 million question here.
Well, the economic analysis they did projects a net present value of around US $630,000 and an economic rate of return of 20.7%. So, on paper, it indicates strong potential if it's executed diligently.
A positive outlook, at least potential-wise. Okay, so let's try and connect the threads here. What does all of this mean for us, the learners, trying to navigate this rapidly changing world?
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. We've journeyed through international conflict, domestic unrest, economic development, and a consistent thread woven through it all seems to be the sheer power and sometimes the peril of information.
It really is a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Absolutely. From the India-Pakistan conflict, we saw misinformation deployed almost like a weapon. Video game footage, AI-generated images blurring the lines of reality used by official sources.
And then in Nepal, we saw the opposite edge, a social media ban becoming the flashpoint for widespread civil unrest. It shows how these digital platforms aren't just communication tools anymore, they're integral to public sentiment, political stability.
Yet information isn't just a source of confusion or conflict. It can be constructive too.
Definitely. Look at Guinea-Bissau. That efficient price information system, simple text messages, becomes a critical tool to empower farmers, strengthen their bargaining power, directly impacting their livelihoods, helping them get a fair price.
Information is a catalyst for positive change. And then there's this other fascinating application of data in commerce.
Yes, the Google Trends data.
Right. Our sources looking at Google Trends for products in 2025 show how e-commerce sellers are using real-time search data. They're identifying next-gen bestsellers months before they hit mainstream awareness.
How are they doing that?
By strategically monitoring early adopters on platforms like TikTok and YouTube, comparing regional search breakouts to target untapped markets, optimizing their fulfillment with global warehouses for faster delivery. It's quite sophisticated.
So this isn't propaganda or misinformation.
Not at all. This is leveraging data for precise economic foresight, for competitive advantage, using information to build businesses smarter and faster.
That contrast is really striking. It highlights that the same digital infrastructure, the same information flows, can be a breeding ground for disinformation.
Or a powerful engine for economic growth and informed decision-making. It really makes you consider, doesn't it? In an era where information can simultaneously mislead and empower, incite and inform, what's our responsibility? As consumers, as citizens.
We've seen just how critical fact-checking and critical thinking are when evaluating official claims during conflict. We've seen the profound impact of digital access, or the lack of it, on social movements.
It puts the onus back on us.
It does, to some extent.
Well, what a deep dive today. We've seen a world where, yes, geopolitical tensions are high, where internal challenges like human rights and political stability are absolutely paramount.
But also where innovative solutions for economic development are making real impacts on the ground.
And through it all, the role of information, both its constructive and its destructive potential, remains absolutely central. It touches everything.
Indeed. So maybe as you reflect on these insights, here's something to consider. How can we, as individuals and as societies, cultivate the critical thinking skills we desperately need to navigate this world, a world where the lines between truth, propaganda, and opportunity are just increasingly blurred?
And maybe what active role can each of us play in trying to shape a more informed and perhaps a more resilient future?
A crucial question for our times.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope this exploration has given you some new perspectives, maybe spark some further curiosity.
Keep questioning.
Exactly. Until next time, keep digging, keep learning, and stay well informed.